This is very sensitive. Good afternoon and welcome to our, give me just a second. We have a new toy and I'm learning how to play with it. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for making this meeting tonight. We have a quorum and I will ask Miss Libby if she will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And board members, let me remind you, we have very, very sensitive mics here, so be careful of putting paper on them or hitting them because it'll drive everybody in the audience crazy. Mics will also be muted until you have a comment, so if you have a comment, please make sure that you get my attention and I will turn your mic on. We are here specifically, this is a special called meeting, we are here specifically to review charter applications, and what we will do, Mr. Coverstone, if it's okay with you, I'm going to turn it over to you. We'll go through the approval process one at a time, and we'll move on and have any questions. Is that okay?
That'd be great.
Perfect. All right. You have the floor.
All right. I appreciate that. I do want to take just a moment at the outset to make sure that I thank Carol Swan for organizing and helping facilitate the process. She's done an exemplary job. I think the reports have as much or more detailed as they've had in previous years. That is a direct result of her work and effort, but also the hard work and effort of the teams that were involved. We had a great number of people who were involved and committed, a wide range of experiences from both our traditional schools as well as our charter schools who across the board helped to participate a great deal in assessing these applications and bringing some of the operational perspectives and particular challenges of startup organizations to our review. So we were really pleased with that as well. I want to particularly thank Jenny Poopa Walker, Art Fuller, and Mary Lauren Seeley. And I think Jenny and Mary Lawrence are here in the audience. Their work in leading those teams made these reviews what they were and brought us the evidence and detail that you had to work on these last few weeks. They got those done in a timely manner so that you had some time to reflect. I didn't see Art come in, but if I missed him, good for him. Art is, of course, the founding director of Knowledge Academies, which is one of our charter schools that started this year and is off to a good start, and one of the people who put together one of the strongest teams of applicants that we had seen to this point, and uses technology extensively and did a lot of really innovative collaboration with his team as well. So I'm sure he's here virtually. I also want to thank you and beg your indulgence tonight because I do think that clarity of communication is really important in this area. Clearly, this is a public conversation, has become more of a public conversation in the last few years, and from time to time, there are some misunderstandings in the public conversation. And I want to make sure that when we make decisions and we make recommendations to you, that we're clear not only in what we give you as support for those decisions that you have to make, but also that we take the time to answer questions, take the time to kind of spell out our thinking and so on, so that people who are here in the audience, but also watching this on television, will have a bit clearer understanding of what we're about here and what we're trying to accomplish. I know we spend some time in work sessions over the years trying to articulate what our strategy is, but I think it's worth moving through some of that tonight. So I beg your indulgence. I hope we'll be able to move along quickly, but also get everyone's questions answered and also sort of address why we're here. So this is important business, and it is the business of creating schools. And we should have really only one reason to create schools, and that is because they're going to provide high-performing opportunities, high-achieving opportunities for our students who will attend those schools. And if we have doubt about that, we should vote not to create those schools. So I've had the privilege now of presenting charter school applications and recommendations to this board on 6 separate occasions in just 4 years. It's been kind of a whirlwind. Our application review process and the people that I mentioned earlier, the people who have served us so well in that process, have resulted in recommendations for approval of 15 charter schools during that time. 5 of those will open this fall, and 8 of the 10 others have performed very well right out of the gates, leading the way and showing us what what's possible and how to do it. They have also been eager to share and quick to assist, in particular innovation principles, but also network leads and other principles in the district in developing data-driven instruction programs for continuous improvement, data tracking systems, and their cooperation and collaboration that way exerts a multiplier effect on what we're able to learn and do as a result of having them as part of our district. And that's why it's so important to me that they be part of our district and that we collaborate together. When we began this in 2009, there were only 5 charters, and their performance across the board was average, really, at best. From the original inherited group, 3 have improved, one of those quite remarkably during the time that we've been here doing this work, and the 2 that did not have closed. I will not remind you of the specific results of our charter schools tonight. That report will come in the fall when all our schools can be compared on the academic performance framework that we've developed. And I don't want to create any false distractions tonight, as sometimes putting up the numbers do. To say that our charters have performed well is not to say that the charters are better than district schools or that they have performed well because they are charters. But it's important for me to remind everyone that the rate of return on our investment in these charter schools has been as high or higher than any other investment I can think we've made in our district over the same period. That result is plainly not because charters are always good. We have also turned down 25 charter applications during the past 4 years, and 2 that we have ultimately approved after first turning them down multiple times during one cycle and then ultimately approving them later for a variety of different reasons are the 2 that haven't performed quite as well. So in other words, we're doing a pretty good job of investing in quality, and we're not leaving quality outfits on the table. Tonight, we are recommending that you approve 4 schools. Each of those schools is actually fairly exemplary in its level of preparation, organizational viability, leadership quality, board stability, track record, and capacity for success. In short, we're recommending these schools for the same and only reason we ever recommend any new schools, because they carry a very high potential to deliver on their promises, build sustainable institutions, and increase the number of high-performing educational opportunities for the students of Nashville. Now, you have issued us a dual challenge over the past year in the form of academic achievement goals and diversity measures, and this is incredibly exciting to me. If we're going to achieve 70% proficiency rates and increase our number of diverse schools in just 5 years, we need to start increasing the number of schools performing at 70% rates as soon as possible and make sure our students are served by them. This cannot be done exclusively by adding new schools, but it probably cannot be done without adding some new schools, and those decisions need to be made this year and next, or those new schools won't even be at capacity by the time 2017 or 2018 rolls around and those goals come due. Several of the charter schools that we've added in the past 2 years are already pressing the 70% level, and that's exciting. And we need more of those. But so are schools like Rose Park, Harpeth Valley, A.Z. Kelly, Andrew Jackson, Bellevue Middle, Chadwell, Creve Hall, Glendale, Glencliff High School, McGavick, Granbury, Head, Meigs, Jolton Elementary, Lockland, MLK, Hume Fogg, and a couple of our turnaround schools are showing double-digit gains like Margaret Allen and Graymar, and we need more of all of those as well. Now, I could go on, and I'm sure I missed people that I'll hear about tomorrow who are also pressing forward aggressively, and I don't mean to fail to mention them, but the point is this. If we're to make good on academic achievement goals that you adopted at your last meeting, we're going to have to be sure that the investments we make in the next 18 months are investments that produce this kind of dramatic return. And we cannot assume that investments in one school type alone will get us there. We have to insist on excellence, follow through on closure and consolidation when schools don't rapidly change outcome for kids, or we won't make it. At our work session in January, I laid out exactly that same approach. I stated it clearly, and I concluded by saying, when this slide was up, put simply, we are actively recruiting the highest performing schools and recommending them for approval and supporting their efforts to find long-term homes. We are simultaneously holding the lowest performing schools to account, including closure and non-renewal, and we will continue to recommend against opening schools whose capacity to deliver on that vision are questionable. This is the basis of our recommendations tonight. And if we are to achieve the ambitious goals you've laid out for us, we need to embrace this approach for all of our schools. Charter advocates need to stop blanket attacks on district schools. We need more Rose Parks in order to succeed. And district advocates need to stop blanket attacks on charters. We need more STEM preps and East End preps in order to succeed. In the Innovation Office, we are testing a variety of different investments to develop an investment strategy that best serves the long-term interests of our children in first-rate educational opportunities while accounting for the fact that our post-race to the top funding sources are likely to be much more constrained. If we are to keep from following the 7 years of fat with 7 years of lean, we have to do things differently. We need new leadership pathways, new roles and resource allocation in schools, and we need to become very good at authorizing new schools so that we can identify capacity building investments, whether district-run approaches or charter schools, that will increase our return on taxpayer investments and build solid justifications for more resources that we can invest well. Authorizing charter schools is all about making wise investments in our portfolio of schools. And the tool for strong authorizing are the same tools we need to use across the district in assessing the likelihood of strong returns for all of our schools. You've given us very clear measures of the values you want us to maximize in terms of academic achievement and diversity. We know that the resources you have available to make investments to pursue these goals are constrained and beginning to decline, and you are rightly expecting us to provide you sound investment advice that will advance your goals as rapidly and completely as possible. We recognize the incredible responsibility we have in gathering investment advice for you, and we are accountable to demonstrate positive returns and reporting those outcomes to you on an annual basis. The academic performance framework will help us to do that more effectively. You also depend on us to help you expand investment in high-yield work, reduce risks through oversight, and liquidate investments that fail to advance your goals, and we take all of those roles very seriously. We're asking you to invest in these 4 schools tonight because we believe they will deliver the results you require, but all our new investments must begin with the realities of the budget challenges ahead of us. The simple reality is that over the past 4 years, Tennessee in general and Nashville in particular has enjoyed one of the best funding climates in the country, and Nashville in particular due to grants as far back as the Small Learning Communities grant, of course the Race to the Top experience, school improvement grants that we've received, magnet school grants, and a host of others really that have made it possible for us to develop and implement a wide variety of strategies to improve student achievement. This advantage has allowed us to test assumptions and approaches with an eye toward innovations that can enable us to achieve and invest wisely when the money is gone. But the end is near. Declining Race to the Top, the school improvement grant period, the end of the magnet school grant, et cetera, as well as the $12 million in reserve spending this year mean that the time to invest selectively in the highest returns on our investment is clearly upon us. We need to employ what we've learned to think in terms of scarce resources so that we can maximize our returns. We think you should invest in these 4 schools because they carry a substantial likelihood of achieving results that will help us move towards your goals, and the time for that is now. But we also need a more comprehensive strategy, one that will allow us to invest in school resources regardless of type, when and where they will add value now. We need an objective analysis that will identify and project needs in categories of high-performing and diverse schools in locations to maximize facility and transportation resources, and preparing to replace school options when low-performing schools like Smiths and Craighead close, or when new priority schools are identified in 2015. I hope that we can undertake a district-wide needs assessment to inform our planning to meet the 2018 goals. We need to be in a position to project our needs over the next 5 years so that we can begin recruiting, creating, and building the best possible strategy to meet those goals. To meet the ambitious targets that you have set, I believe we need to do 4 things, and approving these 4 schools that we're recommending tonight is consistent with those 4 things. Number 1, understanding concerns about over-testing, I believe we still need to agree that minimum proficiency standards can be achieved without compromising the education of the whole child. In fact, they probably can only be achieved if they are linked to the education of the whole child, and the recommended applicants tonight understand that and have demonstrated track records of understanding that. Secondly, we need to invest the resources necessary to achieve real 180-day calendars with additional investments and time for genuine teaming and professional development of teachers. Schools like those we're recommending are showing that these extended times can be accomplished within budget without increasing expenditures per pupil when they're prioritized. Third, We need a rapid infusion of new leaders with autonomy to build strong leadership focus at each school and the accountability to deliver results on the basis of those decisions. And new leaders operating within that framework lie at the heart of the investments that we're recommending tonight in all 4 schools. And lastly, I think we need to consolidate our resources and our school locations in order to increase the proximity of high-quality choices for all families and maximize the resources that flow to the school level. And the schools that we're recommending tonight realize that and are willing and able to locate in areas that will help us to expand those choices in that way. So in short, we're recommending increased investment tonight, fully cognizant of the constraints on the budget, but we are doing so hoping and believing, based on thorough and rigorous review, that we will be demonstrating results and returns on your investment that are worthwhile and will move us closer to our goal. I want to start then with our denials, our recommended denials tonight, and you do have the full reports, and so I will, for the purpose of clarity of communication, read highlights from those reports, but if you have questions about anything that are in the reports or not in the reports, let me know, and we'll be glad to discuss them. So the first school is the Thurgood Marshall School of Career Development. Extensive review of this application found it to be far below standard in educational plan, organizational plan, and evidence of capacity, with a business plan that only partially meets the standards required for recommended approval. The education plan was deficient in detailing critical instructional approaches, especially related to meeting the needs of specialized populations, and strategies appeared disconnected rather than part of a coherent instructional whole. There were few details offered about the career development and entrepreneurship focus, which are at the heart of the model, and the goals listed for subjects were incomplete and not indicative of a clear understanding of high school requirements. Similarly, the student assessment plan was insufficient, and there was little detail concerning formative assessments that would be used or the plan for their development. The plan for staffing was unclear and incomplete, and the schedule as presented appears to be a middle school schedule with assessments reflecting middle school levels and no mention of end-of-course tests or ACT. The daily schedule of activities was confusing and did not reflect a high school schedule. The applicant expressly referred to community partners, university partners, and other agencies as an integral part of the plan, but there was no evidence that any work had really been done in Nashville to develop those partnerships. In fact, all of the partnerships mentioned were Memphis partnerships, and there were no agreements in place that indicated the organizations in Nashville had been contacted or were willing or able to extend their reach to this area. When questioned during the interview about these and other areas of the written application, the review team was not satisfied that enough planning had been done by the applicant to start and sustain a successful school. The operational plan is deficient because the organizational structure is unclear, and the relationship with the Nashville courts is ill-defined. I remind you, this is a program that intends to deal with a specialized population that has a relationship with the juvenile courts. Staffing and professional development plans lack specificity, and there is little or no mention of how students will get to school. Most troubling to the review team was the lack of knowledge and planning concerning how students would be assigned to the school. The juvenile courts in Nashville do not currently assign students to schools, and MNPS has a transition school for students who've been incarcerated that typically has 15 to 20 students at a time, with a typical stay of 9 weeks, extending to 2 years in some extreme cases. Also, a percentage of those students are middle school age students. Not all are high school age students, and there was no evidence in the application or subsequent interview of any outreach to the Nashville juvenile courts, as I mentioned earlier. These facts make the student enrollment plan of 200 students unrealistic, and the accompanying budget assumptions become unworkable and unsustainable. When questioned about these anomalies, the applicant indicated they would work out the details as they opened their already approved charters in Memphis for the upcoming year. This answer did not give the review team confidence that the applicant can successfully open and run a school in Nashville. The business plan demonstrates an over-reliance on fundraising and excessive contribution to the W.E.B. Du Bois Consortium at the heart of this network of schools that is the school's sponsor. There is no specific facility plan, and costly curriculum products combined with uncertain transportation plans make this a highly risky investment financially as well. The capacity to operate a successful school is in serious doubt because the written application was vague and lacked sufficient detail. The applicant did not demonstrate the capacity to implement the proposed educational program with success due to the limited degree of forward planning necessary to develop relationships in Nashville, particularly with the courts. What is lacking in terms of capacity is the direct experience of a school model where a school is focused on a proven and successful set of practices that complement one another and result in high student achievement. While the applicant is free to resubmit, a great deal of specific and detailed work remains for this school to cross acceptable thresholds for recommendation of approval. So the Office of Innovation Division of Charter Schools recommends denial of this application. All of these reasons, as well as those indicated in or included in the written report, constitute objective reasons for denial as required in TCA 4913-108, Section 2. Although every attempt to exhaust the objective reasons has been made, the law requires objectivity, not exhaustiveness, and nothing in this document shall be construed to limit explanations, clarifications, or elaborations in the course of future appeals. And that ends that recommendation.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation from the Office of Innovation to deny. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Second. There's been a second. Motion made and second. Is there any discussion? Let me try this one more time. This little thing is throwing me off. Okay. There's been a motion and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Motion to deny passes. Mr. Coverstone.
Thank you. The second applicant is the Explore Community School. This is an application from an organization which we have great confidence, and we anticipate resubmission to address these issues. It simply isn't there yet. The educational plan does not meet the standards for approval because it does not provide a clear picture of the academic program in its entirety and lacks specificity in critical areas, including middle school curriculum, use of a proposed individual learning plan, and both special education and English learner populations. Among the most significant issues is the lack of detail concerning the middle school grades regarding both curriculum and scheduling. Execution and alignment of the project-based learning program was not fully articulated, and there was no differentiation between elementary and middle school tiers as to implementation. The application lacked an articulated plan to ensure 8th graders would be ready for the rigor of high school transitions or coursework. The plans for English language learners left the committee with many questions, and the capacity interview did not fully address those. And work remains in describing the details and establishing the relationships with the MNPS Office of English Learners that is envisioned in the application as providing sufficient support. There's similarly insufficient detail provided in regard to supports afforded students with disabilities. Although the applicant states that they will use an inclusion model of special education, providing appropriate educational services in the least restrictive manner, there is little detail offered, nor did the committee see research-based practices that supports for these students behaviorally were established or in place. The organizational plan left unanswered some questions regarding board composition and governance relationships among the schools and the nonprofit organization, as well as the remaining qualifications for the leader and leadership team. There's a lack of clarity surrounding facility acquisition. The only mention of a specific space is a preference for leasing from MNPS, but lacking in sufficient contingency planning. If leasing from MNPS is a prerequisite for success, a specific agreement also needs to be a prerequisite for approval. Those important details having been noted, it is also quite clear to the committee that the school currently operated by the sponsor, East End Prep, is performing quite well. And the Martha O'Brien Center is one of the strongest and most dependable organizations in Nashville with a strong track record of success in its undertaking. While the application as submitted and the interview with the review committee do not rise to the level we require to recommend the school with confidence to you, we also do not anticipate this application and school concept will disappear. It's clear that it's not yet fully baked, and it's important for our due diligence and to keep from setting applicants up for potential failures or falling short that we insist on full and complete confidence in making our recommendations. Nevertheless, the application has great potential considering the strength of the founding group, and it is hoped that this report will serve as a catalyst for a strengthened and robust application if the founding group chooses to amend either this year or next. The Office of Innovation, Division of Charter Schools, recommends denial of this application at this time. All of these reasons, as well as those included in the written report, constitute objective reasons for denial as required in TCA 4913-108/2. Although every attempt to exhaust the objective reasons has been made, the law requires objectivity, not exhaustiveness. Nothing in this document shall be construed to limit explanations, clarifications, or elaborations in the course of future appeals. Therefore, we recommend denial at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coverstone. The recommendation has been made by the Office of Innovation to deny the charter application for Explore Community School. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Kim?
Yes, Mr. Coverstone, can you tell us what the appeals process looks like?
Yes, absolutely. The applicant has received the report and will have 30 days to file their resubmission. In years past, it's been 15. It's been extended with the calendar growing this year. So 30 days from now, I'm not sure the exact date, that resubmission is due to our office. It then goes back through the committee process, which has 30 days to review the resubmission. Our recommendation is that the resubmission target the items in the report and that the applicant lead the committee to those changes that have been made with a cover letter and some highlighting so that it's easy to determine whether or not they have sufficiently responded to those concerns. Then the committee will make another recommendation to this board end of August.
Got it. Any further discussion, questions?
I'm just, perhaps one comment. Because the school that Martha O'Brien runs right now, East End, is in my district, and so I've been in the building several times over the course of the year. I've had lots of happy moments touring my schools, but I think the most singular happy moment was being in East End Prep and watching 3 teachers in particular. I mean, the culture, the vibrancy, the high standards, the just focus on excellence was extraordinary. It sounds like there are some legitimate things that need to be worked out, but I did want to say that their past record serving my district, and particularly that community, has been quite extraordinary.
We agree with that. There is a slight difference in this model as well in going K through 8, and some of those things need to be detailed, but we have high hopes.
Any further discussion? It's been a motion made and properly seconded. All in favor of denying the application, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Coverstone.
Thank you. I'm excited about this application. Dr. Register and I had the chance to meet and talk briefly with John Danner 2 or 3 years ago. John Danner is the founder of Rocket Ship, who actually began his teaching career in Nashville before moving to California and starting a charter organization that has earned singularly high marks for success in supporting rapid academic achievement gains for traditionally underserved students. The team working on this application from Rocket Ship's side has been great to work with, and the school brings genuine innovation in blended learning that we haven't really seen in our charter schools or executed in this manner in our schools, and look forward to learning from their experience as they adapt their model and learn from their experiences, and we embark on greater expansions of blended learning in our district schools as well. The education plan meets or exceeds all the criteria for approval because it articulates a proven model that has been implemented with great success in other areas. The Rocket Ship team presented a solid curriculum with excellent student supports and a well-thought-out school design. The proposed plan is data-driven, rooted in college-ready standards, structured around relevant feedback that reflects a commitment toward continuous improvement and commitment to educating students in the Nashville community. The assessment plan is well-balanced between nationally recognized formative and summative measures, and results are used extensively to drive instruction. Rocket Ship's history of collaborating with other agencies to address important social and emotional areas of child development is another example of best practices and a good indication that Rocket Ship as an organization wants to partner with others who have a record of success. The application clearly explains how Rocket Ship will implement its academic plan. It's clear they know the needs of the targeted population and have experience in addressing those needs and concerns. There's a longer school day and year with 184 days of total instruction and much time built into the schedule for remediation as well as extension and enrichment. Teachers will be subject area specialists as well as licensed elementary teachers in Tennessee. The curriculum, instruction, and assessment goals are aligned with the mission and vision of the Rocket Ship team, and they expressed a willingness to work with MNPS to further define our needs so they can further tailor their school model to meet those needs, which is something unusual in a national organization moving to another area and something that they have the capacity and demonstrated capacity to do. While Rocket Ship submitted an application for a K-5 school, for example, it also articulated that a K-4 school might work best in Nashville given the tier structures that we have in place, and expressed a willingness to structure their school accordingly. Their budget aligns with plans for a K-5 school, and a revised budget aligns with plans for a K-4 school. Both budgets align with and support the mission and vision of the school. Additionally, Rocket Ship does not traditionally provide transportation, but it indicated a willingness to do so if warranted by the needs of the families, and there is adequate money built into the budget to address those transportation contingencies. The composition of the governing board is impressive. And the structure that Rocketship has outlined ensures their ability to be fully engaged in Nashville and its success. Organizational responsibilities are well-defined and demonstrate the capacity of this organization to effectively and strategically plan and implement the smart growth of a high-performing network of schools. Compensation for teachers and staff are well above the current market salaries, and it is evident that the applicant has a clear plan for recruiting and retaining top talent. This is indeed part of their model in shifting resources through technology to increase salaries and increase the professionalization and promotional status of their teaching corps. Additionally, the staffing plan is well-designed and innovative. It includes comprehensive job descriptions and is clearly designed to support the academic growth of students. Rocketship has indicated they would lease a facility but are prepared to build if necessary, and this is also reflected in the budget documents. The network budget presents a positive cash flow. You recall when we investigate schools that have other schools operating and there's a network relationship that we apply capacity scrutiny there to determine whether that exists, and it clearly exists in this case. The national organization brings significant resources, as does the governing board. There's a track record of substantial fundraising and considerable expertise writing and obtaining large grants. The budget and assumptions appear to correlate with and support the staffing configuration and educational plan of the school. And the applicant's prior experience in opening and operating charter schools is evident, as the budget reflects a reasoned and reflective approach that supports the overall mission and vision of the school. A proven leader is identified, and the review team was particularly impressed by the organization's transparent and thorough responses to questions and concerns. Rocketship emphasized that they want to blend into the community, reach out to families, and educate the most at-risk students in our community. They were more than willing to adjust their original plans to conform with Nashville's needs and MNPS's landscape, and the review committee is confident in their ability to open and run a successful school. So the Office of Innovation Division of Charter Schools recommends approval of this charter application. This is an organization that brings success, strong leadership, a commitment to closing achievement gaps, and an innovative design that will serve the best interests of students, the district, and the community of Nashville.
Thank you, Mr. Coverstone. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendation from the Office of Innovation to approve the Rocketship Education Tennessee charter application. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, a little louder, folks. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Froeg, then Ms. Shepard, and then Ms. Barron.
Okay, I have several questions around this, and you mentioned, I think a lot of them have to do with whole child and curriculum, and you mentioned that you were pleased with their efforts to educate the whole child, and so do they offer art and music classes? Tell me a little bit about their curriculum and also how it compares to other charter schools in the district.
Well, okay, I'm going to need to go to Carol for some art and music, but the whole child issue to me has to do with the innovative approach to structuring the basic instruction through adaptive computer software and learning lab time, which is being adapted based on their experiences and based on the fact that that software has to improve and is improving over time. The result of that then is that they hire slightly fewer teachers, pay them more, and put them in relationships that are project-oriented and that are more meaningful and relevant in establishing the relevance of the lessons that the students are learning. So instead of spending time in classes with the kind of over-testing and over-assessment that you might expect, you consolidate that here and capitalize on those resources to do a more holistic approach to the students, or offer a more holistic approach to the students as it relates to the core curriculum. They offer art and music and all of that. I don't know that they do anything particularly innovative that stood out to me on that.
Well, just what you said, and they can extend their reach.
Ms. Swan, could you come to the mic, please, so we can hear you?
I was going to let Alan finish that. Just that they do, because of the model that they have, they extend their reach of the adults in the classroom. There may be 2 teachers and an additional 2 parapros or assistants that can work with the kids. And when they have the blended learning, that gives time for extension of art and music and incorporating those things into the curriculum.
Okay. And how does that compare with other charter schools here? Do other charter schools offer, most of our charter schools offer those sort of supplemental classes?
Yes, in various forms. It probably, in lots of cases, is not offered through a certified person, except where required by law to be offered by a certified person. Otherwise, it's integrated into what they do or done through other kind of teaching arrangements. But yeah, they have
Okay. And I had just a couple more questions. But with regard to the learning labs, my understanding was that a few years ago, they were having children in the learning labs for a couple hours a day, and that they were considering modifying that model. Did they change that model?
They're still in the process of modifying that model because of that basic feedback, but they're learning from that experience.
Are they intending to have children in learning labs for 2 hours a day here in Nashville?
I think they generally they're moving away from that kind of lengthy time. And they're
Okay.
using learning lab more strategically.
Okay, but I mean, are we going to be, I guess I'm looking for assurances that we would not have children in computer labs for extended periods. How are we going to know if they move away from that model?
Well, I think it's fairly clear that the goal is to have them in those learning lab situations long enough to learn, and that they were not getting the returns that they were expecting on learning by overdoing the time. And so it seems to me that everything that's in their application and what they're doing in revising that approach is designed specifically to capitalize on the fact that they were past the point of diminishing returns. So I guess my answer to you is we believe that they see the value of doing that differently, and that the outcomes are aligned with that. I think clearly there would, we're going to hear about it if parents think the kids are in the learning lab too long. It's one of the easiest things to pick up the phone and call about. We get calls like that about anything all the time, and we would address that with them. But I wouldn't say that we would recommend telling them how long to have the kids in the lab, but rather to say, I think they've learned something that we also tend to agree with in terms of how you use technology to capitalize on resource distribution.
Okay. And also, I had a question around their service of special needs students. How does that compare with other charter schools in the district, and then with traditional schools?
The application displayed a clear grasp of the resources, needs, and support around students with special needs. I know of no reason why they would not serve them effectively in this environment. I believe they've served them effectively in the past, and they certainly would not have a lower percentage or enrollment. They, if anything, likely have a higher percentage in enrollment.
Okay, one more and I'll be quiet as well. That's fine. Transportation, so they're willing to offer transportation if necessary. Is that something that the school would decide, or?
I have every confidence that we would collaborate on that,
Okay.
To be really honest. I think it depends which of the potential sites they locate at. And then, I think it really just depends on whether they're attracting a student body that fills the school, because they are trying to fill a large school all at once, and whether or not that, also comports with our expectations in terms of how that school will reflect our community.
So Alan, I think you touched a little bit on the transportation, on the location. It's a little confusing. Are they, they're considering three different distinct areas. So they haven't yet decided what location, or are they leaning towards one particular, or?
Yeah, I think from my discussions and understanding, the priority would be the southeast Nashville area, the Antioch area would be sort of step one. Step two, which we had talked about, would be in the North Nashville area, although there was some, they were looking in the Madison area as well. I think there's room for them to make an impact that's positive in any of those three areas, but to your point, I think they're going to have to provide transportation in any of those areas, probably in order to fill the school with the students that need the most. And so, I think that's the kind of the priority order that they've lined up with, and it's just a matter, mostly, I think, of how we interact with them and identify our needs.
Well, then that leads to my second question, in that, do you think that their enrollment goal is realistic or aggressive? I think it's a little aggressive, but.
Yeah, it's aggressive. They've done it before. And so I think because of the innovative model and because of their experience with recruiting, that they're being realistic in their projections and that they will meet those goals. I know that their budget does depend on those goals. I don't have a lot of, I don't have the same lack of confidence with a group that's done that kind of school startup previously that I would with someone proposing those numbers who had never been to the community and knocked on doors. So I would say it's ambitious, but they've done it before, and I think their organization is geared up for it, and I think they'll do it.
One last question. is there any way, I think it's important that the model be a K-4 model because of the way that it mirrors what MNPS is. Is there any way we can make that a stipulation? Because those 5th graders will start school in a what? I mean, it just lends too many questions for me.
Yeah, we've opened East End Prep is a K through 5, so we've done that. But I think they're completely amenable to any of those kinds of stipulations on our part, and eager to meet our needs. And I think they acknowledge that would help students make the transitions as well. So
yeah. Those were my 2 biggest issues: is the K-4 model and the transportation, ensuring that they do have transportation to attend.
My question was answered.
Okay. All right, any
Madam
other?
Chair.
Dr. Gentry.
Sorry. So on the same points that have been made around location and transportation, by when, or has the Office of Innovation given them a deadline by when that decision needs to be made, since those are drivers of choice models and things for us in communications and publishing?
They want to make the decision by July 31st, contingent on this. So I think it'll be pretty quick, and certainly in time for the fall application window, so that people will know.
Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick side comment. I just want to brag on Mr. Coverstone and Ms. Swan and the team. I've been on the outside of this process before, helping start a new school, and I've known how rigorous it is, but seeing it from the inside as the board's delegate to the charter review process was a whole new experience. So the structure and the approach they've developed really is to be commended. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to the entire review team for the time they invest and the expertise they bring to the table. It's a rigorous process, without question, the highest quality process in the state, probably one of the best in the country. So kudos, Alan, Carol, and everyone who's involved. The question I've got, it goes to something Ms. Shepard said, which is the size and scale of this thing, how fast it goes up in 600 students. I mean, this is a moment where I can really begin to envision and see how charters can be a growth management tool for the district, a fast-growing district. As we all know, we've literally got some parts of the county where we can't build schools fast enough, and this does seem like a solution. So my question is, looking ahead, how many more of these types of schools and operators are out there that can bring this type of scale this quickly, who are capable of doing it? So this is, I'm partly reiterating the question, are we sure they can do it, but how common is this, is the second part.
Oh, I don't think it's incredibly common. I guess someone could say I was sheltered, but I think it's mostly more of a gradual approach that people employ for a variety of reasons. But there probably are some out there. This is the only one that I'm really familiar with.
But you feel confident?
Again, I mean, if they've done it before, I feel like they could. I'm intrigued by your connecting that as a growth management tool. That's a great idea, that could potentially resolve some issues in a more short-term order if done well and if done right. So I think we could learn from that as much as we might learn about blended instruction.
Thank you.
Any additional comments, questions?
I've got one more question. I'm sorry, I got one more
Ms.
question.
Brogue?
You mentioned that there's a higher teacher-student ratio in the school. How does that compare to other schools in the district? And I think my understanding is that there are supplemental staff in the classroom at the time.
Yeah. So to be honest, what we're trying to do in the innovation schools, and 3 of them are engaged in pilots now, is very similar in terms of trying to borrow some of these concepts, where you differentiate your roles much more aggressively and completely than you have in the past. So you don't just, everybody's a teacher and you just go in and do that. You offer opportunities for newer teachers to develop while also contributing, and then you extend the reach of those teachers who are more effective and have a track record of success, who can also help development to occur while taking some of the things off of their plate. So that concept is actually one that I think has a lot of promise. And so when I think about what does a time technology swap, using technology to reduce the certification needs that you would have, but still get output in terms of student fundamental mastery, and then translating that reduced gap into a better ability to work as a team in a class class environment and a more rewarding experience really for a teacher to be leading that kind of class interaction and development of student potentials. I think that has a lot of merit to it. And what I have seen from thinking of, it isn't the idea that they sit around for hours and bang on computers, and what you see is the ability to reduce the gaps at the bottom and improve the classroom discussion and the work that goes on there. And that, to me, seems like one of the things that makes a lot of sense in attacking achievement gaps and also attacking enrichment needs at the same time. And I think they've demonstrated that. Is it perfect? And, we're never going to be perfect, but I think they've taken steps forward that we could really benefit from.
And so as far as the people that are in the classroom, are these
full certified teachers?
but the supplemental I know
Sure,
they have
there are
a
other
large
roles.
right. Those would be like social workers or that type of thing, or are they teachers of some sort?
Well, they're all learning to teach and being teachers. They would be lower paid roles, like educational assistants that we use now and things of that nature, only specifically able to deal with the software and help the students in executing their individual learning plans that are attached to their learning lab assignments and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Dr. Brennan.
In regard to the fees that are paid to the regional office, is that a one-time fee of $100,000 or a yearly fee?
It's yearly. It's a management fee. But it comes to what, 3 to 5%, right?
Yes, it says 3 to 5%.
Yeah, it's back office support basically. It's HR, it's policies, it's that sort of thing, and that's where charter management organizations start to function a little bit more like districts because they try to pool their resources to get economies of scale, and then the local school pays a fee for that.
Any additional questions?
Fun fact, the proposed school leader is actually graduated of MNPS.
That's a great fun fact. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
Now go. Is he French? Is he French?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a motion and a second on the table for approval of Rocket Ship Education Tennessee. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Copperstone.
All right, thank you. Next school is Nashville Academy of Computer Science. This is an extension and replication of Nashville Prep. Extension and replication of proven models can be a fruitful strategy for expanding our capacity to meet our goals. And when we look at schools seeking replication, we're looking for the capacity to extend and execute the model because we know that the fidelity of implementation and the people involved in implementation are the keys that will determine the success or failure of the model, not the model itself. This applicant has addressed clearly those potential limitations and has demonstrated its capacity as a learning organization whose capacity to deliver is still expanding and whose adaptations are intentional and add value. The education plan meets or exceeds the criteria for approval because this school is an exact replication of an existing middle school with the added innovative component of computer programming as a thematic concept for all grade levels. Nashville Prep scholars have scored among the highest middle schools in the state and have achieved very well in their initial years of existence here in Nashville. Nashville Prep curriculum and instructional practices will be utilized in the new school, and the review team is confident they will achieve the same or similar results. There's a strong advisory group that researched and wrote the application for the new school and was very engaging in the interview. And the committee was confident after reading the written application and executing the interview that applicants will be successful and will be able to replicate and operate a sound school. And I know many of the supporters of the school are in the audience tonight. Additionally, Nashville Prep has an exceptional track record for strong academic performance from its identified exceptional education and English language learner students. Significant research was cited in the application indicating that learning computer programming contributes to cognitive growth that would give the school new avenues to serve both populations as well. The organizational plan meets or exceeds the criteria for approval because the board has a proven track record of efficiently and effectively managing the school, and there's a known school leader who has proven that he can motivate student learning and make a difference for some of the most at-risk students in our district. The strong partnership that the school has with Tennessee State University, including a letter of recommendation and invitation to continue to locate on the TSU campus from President Dr. Glenda Glover, increases the likelihood of continued facility expansion, and also rich exposure for students to TSU's computer science and engineering departments, which we think would be a positive as well. Community and parent partnership is also strong, and the governing board will include a parent representative from both schools. Professional development for teachers is considered excellent and is supported by the budget assumptions. There's currently a significant waiting list for the current campus, and based on this and the strong governing board, the review team is confident the organization can accommodate a new campus and experience success. The network budget presented to ensure the review teams that expansion will not affect the existing school negatively shows creativity and efficiency with some key functions shared across schools, achieving significant cost savings. There are reasonable facilities, transportation, and food service costs, along with adequate salary distribution and the purchase of additional technology needed to allow students to learn programming skills. While mastering the inclusion of computer programming within the school will be a development in progress, the approach to computer programming as not only a valuable skill, but more importantly as a pedagogical tool that will help develop problem-solving and language acquisition skills, as well as other important skills among students, was intriguing and innovative. This is a school that can help us meet our academic and diversity goals. The Office of Innovation, Division of Charter Schools recommends approval of this application. This is an organization that brings success, strong leadership, a commitment to achievement gap closure, broad community engagement, and a relentless pursuit of excellence that will serve the best interests of the students, the district, and the community of Nashville, in our opinion.
Board members, you have a recommendation from the Office of Innovation to approve the charter application for Nashville Academy of Computer Science and Nashville Prep School. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made in second. Any discussion? Ms. Beering.
I just want to say that I visited Nashville Prep, and I've been really impressed with their culture, the excitement, the learning that's going on there, and to have a second middle school is exciting. And the fact that 79% of their kids were proficient or advanced in math is wonderful. 64% in reading language arts, 81% in science, and 98% in social studies. And I commend them on going into public housing and making this school available for this particular student population. It is a real need, and it meets a need that we have in metro schools, and this is exciting.
Any further discussion or comments? Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Coverstone.
Thank you. The next school is KIPP Nashville College Preparatory Elementary School. KIPP Academy Nashville is, of course, one of our longest standing partners, and they've shown us both how to start schools as well as how to insist on and execute dramatic improvement when their results lagged, which I think is an even bigger challenge. KIPP has worked with MNPS to meet challenges, and their organizational practices in leadership and human resources have helped us to improve our own work in the district. In fact, members of our human capital team are participating in a KIPP leadership development program this year that is supporting linkages and shared lessons to improve the work of all involved organizations, which I think is really exciting. With the resources of KIPP National behind them and a track record of success within the Nashville community, KIPP is uniquely positioned to impact students' lives in the elementary school positively. Their identified school leader, Kristen Weens, is a Fisher Fellow and has taught previously in an elementary school on which the KIPP Nashville College Prep Elementary model is based. KIPP Nashville has a track record of success, and they are in the excelling categories when measured on the standards that are part of our academic performance framework. KIPP's 5 pillars of success focus not only on academics, but also social emotional learning and the well-being of students. And if you want a charter school that does particularly well with arts and music, you should listen to the KIPP choir. KIPP has identified solid research-based curriculum and is focused on deep learning techniques and instructional models that will ensure every student learns. Assessments are frequent and focused, with instruction driven by the results of those assessments. Academic targets are future-oriented, relevant, based on the Common Core, and rigorous. Teachers are given extensive professional development, and there's built-in leadership path for high performers. The composition of the board provides an unparalleled amount of experience and commitment of resources to govern and support the organization, and one of the more experienced boards in Nashville when it comes to charter school management. The executive director, Randy Dowell, has shown his unwavering commitment to the organization and the families of Nashville. And along with him, the paid staff of the organization provide for strong management, operations, and staffing plans which align perfectly with the school's mission and vision. Personnel plan includes succession planning and stacking the school for potential new leaders constantly in the pipeline. There's a detailed section on how potential leaders obtain Fisher Fellow status and the extensive training given before they receive their own school, which is a prerequisite in KIPP's quality metrics. There's also a significant and detailed professional development plan and a comprehensive manual that was included as part of the application. Transportation and food service plans are detailed and complete, and of course they have a long history of operating both of those. The replication application answered any lingering questions that could remain regarding KIPP's capacity to open an additional school, and the review team was encouraged that a member of the KIPP National Foundation was present to support the Nashville team during the interview process. KIPP outlined plans for future expansion, and it was clear to the review team that the management structure could easily support the additional schools. The description of the financial compliance, support processes, procedures, and plans in place presented in the application and the replication documents are more than sufficient to ensure the proven business plan will be implemented with fidelity to support the mission of the school. While KIPP's model is not the only model that can meet the needs of students based on an objective review of standardized tests, TVAS growth standards, etc., it is clear that the model is working and continues to be in demand by students and families. The leadership team and governing board have been managing the growth of the organization with an eye toward ensuring that they have the capacity to open schools that will be successful in continuing to meet the needs of the students and families that they serve, and the students and families are usually foremost in their considerations of courses of action. The Office of Innovation Division of Charter Schools therefore recommends approval of the charter application. This is an organization that brings success, strong leadership, commitments to closing the achievement gap, and a track record of success that will serve the best interests of students, the district, and community in Nashville.
Thank you, Mr. Coverstone. Board members, you've heard the recommendation from the Office of Innovation for approval of KIPP Nashville College Prep Elementary. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Shepherd.
I have a couple questions. As far as their location, it appears that they're relying heavily on MNPS property. Since they have such a strong presence in Nashville, I'm a little surprised and or maybe concerned that they're having difficulty finding their own location.
Well, I mean, I think that's perhaps a fair point, but it's much more, I think, a desire to integrate into the facilities that already exist and make use of them. I think, honestly, we're ahead by having Highland Heights being renovated and having a strong school there as opposed to what was there previously. Obviously, we made some accommodations this year that maybe weren't the easiest of accommodations to maintain their presence in Ewing Park, but the Ewing Park facility really does offer a good amount of space for the possibility of a K through 8 with this elementary school being added, and provided that the district's growth plans are not headed in that direction, it seems like a viable strategy, and one that I personally believe we can recoup a little bit of our otherwise vacant capital. Now, this is why I say earlier in the presentation that it's so important for us to continue to project forward in terms of all of the variables: academic performance, our spending, our facilities that are available or not available, locations of schools, transportation, and choices for families. And I think we are really on the cusp of being able to do that for the next 5 years in relation to the goals that you have set. And I think that question remains a live one. But for now, I think it's a good approach.
Okay. And secondly, do you know, citing their test scores, do you know if they had what their attrition rate was this past spring?
Right. So the test scores from last year were not associated with any of the attrition numbers that have been much widely reported this year, first of all. the relationship between test scores and the data that was released and reported in the paper there was no relationship, because the attrition was happening this year and there hadn't been any test scores yet. And so really a lot of the reporting jumped immediately to that conclusion. Now, there is concern anytime a student leaves a school. I personally am glad that we are focused on mobility and actually trying to reduce mobility, because I think for too long we've sort of accepted mobility as kind of the cost of doing business. And it is a cost of doing business, but we can overreact with standardization rather than efforts to try to consolidate. And I'm talking about all of our schools. KIPP has been and will continue to be a willing and eager participant in that discussion. And I think we will move forward in identifying numbers that will enable us to answer that question, 5, as opposed to some of the variables in interpreting what the measures of attrition are that are very much live and under debate. That measurement system needs to undergo the same consensus building and research that the academic performance framework did, so that we can arrive at something that gives us confidence. I will say this, we do not believe that KIPP pushes people out of the school in order to increase test scores, and we don't believe there's evidence of that. And while we will continue to remain diligent in investigating that, that's not what we think is happening.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ms.
I
Barron?
just want to comment on the attrition as well. I talked with Randy Dowell, and I've seen KIPP on several occasions, and they were awarded first place in all of Middle Tennessee through K-8 involving K-8 schools from the Education Consumers Foundation with the value-added scores. And I know that Randy Dowell's goal for the attrition next year is 14%. And he's also willing and plans to, anytime a child leaves his school, he is going to send information to the Office of Innovation, even though that's not required. And I think that shows a willingness to be transparent and support. He does not want there to be any question that there is anyone kicking kids out of the school.
Any additional comments? Questions? We've got a motion, and it's been properly seconded for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes for approval of KIPP Nashville College Prep Elementary. Mr. Coverstone.
All right, finally tonight, and again, I appreciate everyone's time and attention and diligence in reviewing these reports. It's obvious that you spent time on that, and I'm glad we were able to give you a little more than 24 hours notice, Mr. Hayes, to be able to plow through those. This application, in my mind, is without question one of the most complete and exciting that we've ever received. It applies lessons learned from creating a successful school model built on collaboration and partnerships with the best interests of children and community at the very heart of the undertaking. Todd Dixon understands the power of community, the importance of collaboration, the commitment to instructional excellence that can lead the way not only in developing his own schools, but also toward helping everyone in Nashville get better by working together. The Valor values speak to the difference between this proposed school network and other national networks that might not do the legwork to make sure that their application and approach will work well for students in Nashville. The Valor values include excellence, continuous growth mindset, kindness, joy, individual and community, and diversity. The educational plan meets or exceeds the criteria for approval because Valor's vision and mission statements, along with an in-depth needs analysis conducted here, express a clear, focused purpose for the school. The focus is on high-quality educational outcomes, and the philosophy and instructional techniques are clearly aligned and articulated. The proposed instructional practices are grounded in research and experience and in the alignment with the mission and vision. Valor presented a fully aligned curriculum with its objectives, content and skills, learning outcomes, promotion, and exit standards for each grade they will serve. The team had clearly researched and chosen curriculum and rationales for its choice, which were clearly articulated. During the interviews, the review team was impressed by the depth of knowledge the founding team displayed, not only of the overall vision, but also the day-to-day operations of the school, its academic goals, and educational outcomes. Valor provided specific examples of evaluations, both formative and summative, that are part of the total system of assessments that lead to the evaluation of the effectiveness of the overall academic program. There's a comprehensive plan to address the poor supports for students, missing benchmarks, how data will be used to inform professional development, and how teachers will use and analyze data. The explanation of data days for students was rich, with detail, and very thorough. There's a concrete and comprehensive plan to meet the needs of students with disabilities, gifted and talented students, and English language learners that includes strategies and interventions that are fully described and grounded in best practice research. The school has designed an exceptional professional development program for teachers with clear links to curriculum and goals for the school, as well as MNPS initiatives. The plan is fully documented with references to current research and very clearly articulated through a teacher evaluation tool that was included as well, and as well as a very detailed and thought out hiring policy. Valor Collegiate meets the standard for approval because the applicants presented a strong organizational plan that is ready to implement. The diverse expertise of the governing board includes members with charter school experience as well as instructional experience and other broad community experience. Valor presented a proven team with a proven structure, and their founding executive director has operated charter schools in both California and Denver that are among the most successful in the country. I sort of promised I wouldn't mention Waiting for Superman, but his school is featured there. And he has moved to Nashville and is now a Nashville resident, and will be working shoulder to shoulder with us in the implementation of this school and development of our others. The staffing plan is well designed, comprehensive job descriptions are detailed, explanation of how the staff will be recruited, etc. The school calendar and schedule as presented are aligned with the mission and vision, show plenty of built-in time for remediation, enrichment, extracurricular activities, and so on. The professional development plan supports staff growth and was detailed thoroughly. The review committee was particularly impressed with the plans for professional development during intersession and the fact that all PD will be driven by detailed data analysis. The budget fully supports the professional development plan and includes reliable assumptions. The applicant's prior experience in opening and operating charter schools is evident in the extremely detailed budget and pre-opening plan submitted. Tasks were described in granular detail, which will probably find their way into our own pre-opening checklists to assist further applicants in opening effectively. It includes a timeline, individuals responsible, support staff needed, due dates, and resources. Projected growth is based on realistic data, and conservative spending are more than adequate to meet the school's needs based on their chosen model. The governing board has extensive expertise, as mentioned, and there are many letters of community support from a diverse segment of Nashville's community, which indicates to the review team there's been a great amount of community outreach and involvement in the planning and writing of the application. Now, if I could take just a second and add some context to the often misunderstood question of charter management organizations or networks of schools in this context. One of the oft-repeated errors floating around has been that Nashville is hostile to charter management organizations. I think you can begin to see from these recommendations today and our ability to attract thoughtful and impressive replications that we believe strongly that networks of schools bring benefits provided the capacity to deliver on promises is kept. The basic belief also lies behind our own internal efforts to create networks of district schools like the Innovation Cluster or the lead principal roles that we are establishing and developing around particular models or approaches. We know that each network has a different capacity level, some smaller than others, some larger than others, and the trick is to expand and capitalize on that capacity while avoiding overexpansion that can be created by irrational exuberance and lead to bubbles that burst with the failure to deliver. But don't let the CMO network question become a litmus test any more than we should let the charter school versus district school versus magnet school versus zone school become a litmus test. We are recommending investments in CMOs like KIPP, LEAD, Nashville Prep, Rocket Ship, and Valor because they are responding to and meeting the needs in Nashville with high capacity to continue to accelerate our overall results for students. In my mind, these are the networks and CMOs we need, and we need to resist the networks whose ambitious visions of expansion take little account of the needs of our students and whose inattention to capacity issues makes them risky investments. Valor Collegiate's a blue chipper. I recently read one charter school supporter who claimed that the school's commitment to excellence and diversity was a guinea pig experiment. I just want to say I could not disagree more. This is a school organization built on years of experience and led by a person who is committed to serving Nashville rather than just expanding a model he alleges to have been successful elsewhere. We will all benefit from having Todd Dixon in town. I'm glad that he's a member of our Nashville community, and I hope that he will be approved to be a member of the MNPS community tonight. The Office of Innovation, Division of Charter Schools, recommends approval of this application. This is an organization that brings success, strong leadership, a commitment to excellence and diversity in the context of highly effective instruction and innovative design that will serve the best interests of students, the district, and the community of Nashville, in our opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Coverstone. Board members, there is a recommendation for approval of Valor Collegiate Academy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Ms. Shepherd?
Alan, on the, considering economies of scale, I know that they're going to open with 145 students, and they're discussing 3 facilities that they could lease or 2 that they could purchase. Does the budget support having only 145 students the first year?
It does. There is extensive external investment as well, including from the incubator in Nashville, as well as other contributions. But it's built on that, but yes, it does support it.
Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to commend Mr. Dixon, the proposed school leader, or the leader of the proposed school. I've seen his tracks across South Nashville over the past year. He's been very responsive to the community, has really tried to understand at a ground level what's going on in Nashville, and appreciate the level of time and commitment that he and his board have spent really trying to be part of this community. I have 2 quick things. One is just some piece of wraparound context for tonight, and then second, a very specific question about the school that piggybacks off something that Ms. Shepherd was asking. I'd just like to take a minute to remind folks, the people who claim that this school system is hostile to choice, what has happened this year. First, our budget. The mayor and the Metro Council gave us a grand total of $14 million in new revenue for the 2014 operating year, and you would not know it by listening to anti-MNPS propaganda, but every dime of that new revenue is going to fund new schools and growth in existing charter schools. So we are committed to fulfilling our responsibility under state law and seeking out innovation wherever it exists. And then obviously tonight is the clearest evidence. We have so far tonight approved 3 schools, high-quality schools, which would bring our overall charter portfolio to 22 if we approve a 4th. So anybody who claims we don't support choice is frankly not paying attention, or they're being intellectually dishonest. Now, that's my wraparound context. The question I've got is this. My understanding is the school comes to us via the Tennessee Charter School Incubator. So Mr. Coverstone, can you speak for a minute about what support the incubator has provided to get the school to this point, what support they'll be providing going forward? I ask this because I helped start a school that came out of the incubator, and it was kind of an underwhelming experience. We were stimulated into existence and then kind of left to fend for ourselves on facilities, and I think there were some days where we thought we might not make it on time. I think this is important context because this board needs to know if this school is going to get the proper supports going forward, whether the incubator is going to set them adrift the way they've done with some other schools, and more specifically, who, if anyone, the incubator or anyone else in the private sector who really has called for these schools, is putting together the kind of robust revolving credit facilities that's going to really be needed to help them find homes. Because I think, obviously the district has helped on facilities and will continue to do so, but let's be honest here, we've got hundreds of millions of dollars in deferred maintenance on existing schools that we need to tend to, and I think the private sector has some responsibilities here. The government, the taxpayers can't do it all. So I'm just kind of curious atmospherically what's going on out there relative to this specific school and its siting.
That was a lot of questions. Thank you. I will try my best. You may have to remind me, but with regard to the incubator, I probably have several comments, but for the purposes of this school, there is a commitment letter for a formal contribution. I believe it's $100,000 to the school, as well as other funding resources. I would never bring a school for which I had doubts that they would be able to pull together the facilities plan on the strength of a belief that the incubator would somehow establish a facilities plan for them. I don't know if that's what the incubator claims it's trying to do. I think it's really claimed to try to provide, funds for a fellowship for people like Mr. Dixon to be here to work on their charter applications, as in the case of the contract with Building Excellent Schools, which Mr. Gupta and Ms. Lentz came through, and some others, to give them the opportunity to learn from others and develop their model. I think that's really the focus. And I don't, I guess you'd have to ask them whether their purpose is to support facilities management or not. I haven't really taken that to be their purpose. Now, regarding your second question, the answer is yes. there absolutely needs to be broader support across a variety of different resources in our community to enhance credit and establish the ability to support capital investments. We need to be able to enter into arrangements that include capital improvements for our buildings. That's part of the way that we can capitalize on the resources that we have, make facilities available, but also not be on the hook for a huge deferred maintenance bill later on. We have to work together to come up with some solutions. We're either talking about expanding our capital stock, which requires new investment that isn't part of our public portfolio, or we're talking about improving and maintaining parts of our stock that otherwise would not be improved and maintained over time, and that requires extra capital. I think we can work together fruitfully and effectively to do that, but we do have to have everyone at the table, and we have to have everyone participating. And so I think ideas like that one are at the center of solutions that need to be pursued.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing. I mean, I just think the easy part of this is creating new stuff and then being critical of traditional schools. The harder part is actually helping manage and resource the work ahead. So I'd love to see a stronger commitment come out of the private sector to help this school and others.
Any other comments or questions? Dr. Gentry.
Can you help me reconcile what I'm looking at here on the screen of the 140 ramping up to 740 versus the 145 ramping up to 1045 that's in the document?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm sure you have a great answer.
You know I'm going to Carol. Was I looking at the wrong sheet? Where's that? Those were the numbers. 1045. Okay, correction, that's my mistake. Those, I don't know if I looked at the wrong sheet last spring when I gave you the numbers, so it'll start with 2 classes of 145 each, a 5th grade one class of 145 in 5th grade, building forward until it reaches full capacity at 1,045, which is in 2021. So those numbers that you have are accurate on this chart here. This is not.
Any additional questions?
I've got a comment.
Ms. Frogue?
I was just going to say I, too, was excited to see this application and the focus that it brings. You mentioned a couple of buzzwords I think are very important, community and collaboration. One of their core values I noted was kindness. How refreshing to have that in an application. And I like the focus on social and emotional development, on character, on physical health, and on true diversity. They seem to be very focused on gifted students at one end of the spectrum, special needs, EL students, and socioeconomic diversity, which I think is very important in driving achievement. So I was excited to see the application and pleased with also the efforts that the school has made to reach out to the community and establishing themselves.
Any additional comments? There is a motion on the floor, and it's been properly seconded to approve the charter application for Valor Collegiate Academy. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Coverstone. Now, we will wrap this up by offering last-minute comments from board members if you need to make comments. Dr. Register, I would really like to start with you. Any comments?
Yes, I want to also acknowledge the good work of Carol Swan and Dr. Coverstone, recently awarded the doctorate from Vanderbilt. So congratulations on that, Alan. But I also want to say that I too believe very strongly that we have the most rigorous, most thorough approval process that we could have. I know that there are a number of people in the audience who served on the various approval committees, and thank you for the many hours that you put in. I think the quality of the approval process is very apparent. I also want to congratulate those of you who were approved tonight. I know that we have many of you in the audience, so I hope you'll take an opportunity to come up and introduce yourself to the board members and give us an opportunity to congratulate you personally. So congratulations, and we look forward to working with you.
Dr. Gentry? Dr. Brannon? Ms. Spearing?
Not at this time.
Ms. Kim? Ms. Shepard?
I just want to say thank you to everyone. Just echoing Dr. Register's comments. I know it's a very arduous procedure. Carol and Alan, y'all do a fantastic job. The reports were very thorough, and I do appreciate that.
Mr. Pinkston.
No, thank you.
Mr. Hayes. Ms. Frogue.
I did prepare a few comments. First of all, I also want to thank the Office of Innovation. I think that they do a fantastic job vetting our schools, and I think that is the reason we have a successful charter school community here. I do want to make some comments more generally. I voted for the schools that I voted for tonight because I truly believe they're going to be assets to our community, and I believe these are going to be good schools. But I still think that we have a lot of work to do as a district, and my concerns extend beyond the individual charter schools that we have here in Nashville. My primary concern, which we have all talked about quite a bit this spring, is fiscal accountability. I am gravely concerned about the financial impact on our existing schools of opening too many charter schools. 55% of our budget increase this year will go to our charters that will serve only 5% of our student population. And if we are to continue to approve charter schools, I think we need to make some very radical changes and develop a clear plan as to how we plan to pay for these schools. Because we cannot bankrupt 95% of our students at the expense of 5% of our student population. I think we also need to develop a clear understanding of where our needs lie and a plan concerning what types of charter schools we'd like to see and where we'd like to open them. So in short, I think I would like to see us be more proactive in expressing our needs as a district, and I was glad to hear tonight that we are already starting that work through the Office of Innovation. I have voted for these schools tonight because I think it's arbitrary to penalize any certain schools, and particularly very good schools like these. But I can't in good conscience continue to approve more and more charter schools unless we come up with these clear plans next year. And this raises a much larger point to me, which is that our board has been subject to tremendous political pressure and political distractions since we came together last August. I think this has impacted our effectiveness as a board and prevented us from delving into issues that would drive the most change in our district. We have spent a lot of time talking about charter-related issues that this past year have impacted only about 2,000 of our 81,000 students. And while I believe that good charter schools can certainly complement our district's efforts, we need to be able to focus on broader needs of all the 81,000 students in our district. And so as governance chair, I am committed to changing our focus in the upcoming year to broader district-wide reforms and to conducting a full review of our board policies to find ways to improve our effectiveness as a board and as a district. And we have begun that process tonight with our governance committee meeting immediately prior to this meeting. And finally, I'd like to say that if we have practices that are working in our charter schools, by all means, let's find ways to share them. I think the ideal situation for us would be to implement good practices in all of our schools instead of opening more and more new schools. And we have existing schools that also need help. I would like to see us build on what we have and support the efforts of the teachers and administrators at those schools. I would like to see us getting resources to the schools that they need, and let's not throw away our community schools. So I call on every one of us sitting at this table and everyone in the district and our charter community to help in this effort. Let's work collaboratively to repair what we have, to share our best practices across the board, and to drive continued and faster improvement in all of our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Frogue. Well said.
Hey, may I add to that?
Ms. Baring.
I think it's, thank you, Amy, for those comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me say also congratulations to the schools that we approved tonight. I got busy in my prepared comments, but go ahead.
Yes, I think that it's so easy for us to forget to learn from each other. And all districts that have turned around, all states that have turned around, have done it through collaboration, not competition. And working, as Amy has suggested, cooperatively, learning from our charter friends. I'm sure our charter friends would like to learn from some of our highest performing schools and to work together. And this, I'd like to bring note, I'd like to read these comments. considering the whirlwind of activity over the past 12 months and to demonstrate our cooperative spirit with Metro Council and other Metro agencies, I would like to bring notice that I will make the following motion at our next board meeting on July the 9th. As a proactive measure in crafting the 2014-2015 MNPS budget, I move that the board request a comprehensive review of the current 2013-2014 budget as a joint venture between the budget and the governance committees of this board. This review will allow for any modifications to ensure that our fiscal responsibilities and our policy governance practices are aligned so that they complement the mission, goals, and objectives of MNPS.
Thank you, Ms. Baring. And as we wrap up, I would like to remind board members, first of all, let me say congratulations, Dr. Coverstone, great job. Also, please join me in congratulating our own Dr. Gentry, who was inducted into the 2014 Leadership Nashville class. So congratulations, Dr. Gentry. Mr. Fred Carr was also inducted. Next board meeting will be July 9th, and we will have a work session on July 23rd. And having said that, the last thing I'd like to say is thank you, board members, for your diligence and your patience and your review of these applications. You are appreciated. Nothing else, Ms. Froh?
This meeting is adjourned.